Ollie has, I guess you could call it a trick. He has a recipe for pie and for applesauce and for apple cobbler, all very similar. And the trick to that recipe is that not only can it take apples that are kind of marginal, it's better with apples that are kind of marginal. And what do I mean by marginal? I mean apples that are overripe, small, funky shaped, that have some soft spots, or are not ripe yet. Because the way that Ollie cooks them, it's a slow cooking kind of process with some added citric acid and a few other things that really breaks it all down and makes it all to come together. It really responds to that mix. So Ollie can make these delicious pies and other things with some apples that he can usually get really cheap because they're apples that nobody wants to eat, just like fresh. And it was getting toward the end of apple season, and so Ollie went to the farmer's market figuring he would get a bunch of apples and chuck them all in his big chest freezer and just be making these pies for weeks. But when he got there, he found some fresh, ripe, lovely apples that you would just want to munch right into, but he couldn't find any marginal apples. He would ask all the different vendors that had apples, and none of them had any sort of sketch apples, crates of rejects, which they usually do. Even he would go toward the end of the farmer's market day, around noon. Nothing. I was perplexed. And he asked one of the last apple sellers that he got to. He said, yeah, well, somebody came in ahead of you and bought all of my overripe, even rotten apples. They even got stuff that you don't even usually get, stuff that's moldy. They take everything, not just from me, not from everybody, from some of the tomato people too, and the other vegetable sellers, some squash, and they walked away with a truckload full of rotting vegetables, basically. And I know I gave them away for I don't know. I think I gave them had him give me $2 for a crate. So I assume he got deals like that all around the farmer's market. I said, did they say what they were going to do with it? I said, no. No, I didn't ask. I was just glad to be rid of the stuff, because there's a few people like you that'll come and get the overripe apples, but mostly that's lost merchandise for me, so I didn't ask any questions. Ollie asked around a little bit more to some of the other vendors, and they said the same thing, that this couple of people, actually it was three, depending on who you asked, either 3 people or 4 people, came around and asked for all the sort of rotten, unsuitable vegetables or fruits or whatever. Eventually, Ollie found one vendor that had gotten where the people had written him a check. Elsa, stop. Where the guy had written them a check. And he was able to bribe the vendor to look at the check and got an address. Now, Ollie didn't really have a mystery per se, but he felt like something weird was going on here and he wanted to poke into it. So poke he did, because this was a local address in a neighborhood called Ednor Gardens, not that far away. I looked up on the real estate data, found the owner's name. It's owned by a couple, a Miles and a Stephen Anderson. I looked them up on social media, and they were, literary types. They posted pictures of their kids, of their cousins, of their, regular social media stuff. But they also posted a lot about authors and musicians that they liked or didn't like. And they had strong opinions, both of them. And they actually shared a Facebook page. And then Ollie saw that there was something that they kept on posting about. As an event that they had RSVP'd to, but then shared privately. And it was an author that they just hated. Ollie dug around on Facebook and other social media, and I found all these nasty, catty comments, mean, and vindictive, and critical about this author. And then I found a crucial clue, because that author was going to be in town, and they were doing a book signing for a new book that author was releasing. And I thought, oh no, they're going to go old school, aren't they? They're going to take a bunch of rotten fruit and they're going to pelt this writer with rotten fruit and vegetables and all sorts of horrible things. I've got to do something. I looked because, I mean, normally when you go to a book signing, it's inside in a bookstore. But now with everything being all weird from the pandemic, it was going to be outside. It was going to be on the sidewalk outside of, I forget what it's called. No, Bird in Hand, the one over in Charles Village. There's a bookstore and a coffee shop. You know what I mean? Anyway, there, this place, Bird in Hand or something like that, where it's a bookstore and a coffee shop, and it's going to be outside on the patio there. And it was going to be today. This was the day, starting at 1 o'clock, starting very, very soon. Ollie abandoned his plans to make pie and made his way over there as soon as he could. It was not too far down the street, but like a good 20-minute walk. Maybe 15 minutes. So Ollie made quick time. He thought that maybe he could get there and warn them before things actually happened. And that probably would have worked. Except, as Ollie crossed over Able Street, he heard a loud scream. There was an old lady there, and she'd fallen. There was like a root sticking up through the sidewalk, and she'd fallen. And she'd actually even broken her arm. So I rushed over to help. She was pretty spry for an old lady, but, broken arm's no joke. Luckily, they were right by there by the hospital. So I stopped and helped her get over there to the emergency room and got her checked in. By the time all that was sorted out, it was like 1:30. And I thought, oh no, I might be too late. So he made sure the lady was okay. And he got thrust the way over to the bookstore. I thought as he turned around the corner, because there was a book signing happening there, and nobody was covered in rotten vegetables. But then he had to figure out how to get in, because there's a line. People wanted to talk to the author, people wanted to get their book signed. So he came up and he saw that there was a little chalkboard that had kind of a schedule. They were going to do autographs for 45 minutes, and then he was going to do a reading from the book, and then more autographs after. And they were just about to start their reading. Ollie went over to the autograph line and saw that everyone had taken numbers. So that's how they were going to restart after the reading. So he took a number. And then Ollie saw a truck. A big white truck pull around the corner and kind of park pretty much right in front of the bookshop. Ollie realized he didn't have time to wait and be polite. He rushed over to the author and said, "Look, you don't know me, but you're about to get pelted with vegetables. There's this super anti-fan here, and they have a bunch of rotting vegetables in their truck. I can't be sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. And right as Ollie finished that sentence, a cucumber came whizzing by. Shoo, splat. And the author, his name was Abrahima, said, "Oh, yikes." Another tomato came whizzing by. She dodged, and Ollie dodged. There started to be some commotion among the crowd. They looked, and they saw two guys standing on the back of a pickup truck chucking fruits and vegetables at the author. When everyone turned around and looked at them, they started to yell, "Boo, boo, boo, your work's all derivative. It's hack. It's just a rip-off of Harry Potter and a rip-off of Kurt Vonnegut. Boo, 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 write your own material, boo." They were trying to get the crowd behind them, but the crowd was not behind them. The crowd was mad. They'd come to get their books autographed, and here were these fruit tossers. And people were getting hit by vegetables. They were throwing the vegetables as fast as they could. Ollie kind of knew what was coming. So he told the author, you should go inside. This is probably going to get kind of ugly pretty fast here. So the author rushed inside, and the employees tried to come out and help. But Ollie was right. A few seconds later, people from the crowd started rushing toward the truck. Said, "Oh, we gotta go, run, run, run." But it was too late. The truck was swarmed with fans of the author. And they started picking up the crates of rotten vegetables, and they were pelting the two hecklers with the vegetables now. The tables were turned. They opened up the doors of the truck, and they started throwing vegetables and fruits in there, and smush, smash, smash, smash. And they grabbed a hold of them, and they smushed rotten tomatoes in their faces. And
Wait, the fans?
the fans
Got the...
turned on the hecklers, yeah. I know.
Not.
Yeah. The hecklers got covered in their own tomatoes and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were smushed, and they were smashed, and they were gooey, and they were sticky. And they were just covered. And one person, or one group, had even taken one of the two and picked them up and tossed them into the truck beds. They were just like lying in a big pile of their own mushed vegetables. Ollie just kind of let it happen, because honestly, why stop it? They kind of deserved it. But when it got to that point that they were picking people up, he was like, this is going to get to the point of assault pretty quickly. So he came up and he blew. He didn't have a whistle, but he kind of made a whistle with his arms in his mouth, and he blew really hard. Everyone turned around and said, okay. I think they've got the message. They got the message. We should let them go. The crowd sort of turned, confused. They didn't know Ollie. A few of them did. But here was a talking octopus telling them to stop throwing vegetables at a pair of random dudes in a truck. All very weird, all outside of the normal experience that you expect on a Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. But the crowd did calm down and walk away. And the guy who had been thrown into the back of the truck and covered in goo scampered over and climbed into the truck. And the other guy found the keys and threw the ignition, and they drove off with a squeal, dropping gooey, mushy vegetables, squish, all over the road. Squash, squish. And the whole crowd was kind of stunned and not sure what to do. Was it a good thing they had just done? They guessed, kind of. They looked around, and the mess was pretty much contained to the street and sidewalk, so they were feeling all right about that, but some of them got pretty messy. Everyone really knew what to do. And then all of a sudden, the employees started coming out of the store with just armloads of coffees and waters. And said, "Hey, everybody, who needs a coffee? Who needs a water? Who needs a fruit juice?" And started passing out drinks and calming everybody down. Ollie went over to one of the employees and said, what's going on? Who's paying for all this? He said, "Well, the author paid for half of it, and the shop's paying for half of it. Such a crazy thing. We just want everybody to have a good time. It's all right." Ollie, thank you. Thank you for stepping in. This could have been a lot worse if you hadn't come by. I said, oh, I didn't just come by. I heard about this all the way down at the farmer's market. I knew I had to step in. I said, well, Ollie, you've already got, the employee discount here. But I've got a free coffee here, one just the way you like it. Tall, hot, no sugar, no cream, a little splash of vanilla. I said, that's very sweet of you, and I won't say no. So I took his coffee, and the crowd gathered around, and the author came back out and said, well, that's pretty nuts. Who would like to hear some from my new book? And that was the case of Ollie and the Fruit Bandits.